My friend Michael Gelb returns to the podcast today to talk about his new book, Walking Well, written with Bruce Fertman. It's all about walking, and it starts really basically with just how to walk biomechanically. And instead of other sources that I've seen that kind of talk about like a set of instructions, this is really a way of undoing what's unnatural so that we can return to our natural way of walking, which means we can walk longer, farther, faster, with less effort. And I started doing it, and it's amazing how quickly these little tweaks have helped me with my walking. The book also goes into why walking is so amazing for us, for our physical health, our mental health, spiritual health, community. And it's interesting because, one of the earlier books that I read of Michael's was Lessons from the Art of Juggling, which is a very sort of esoteric, niche topic that he and I both love. Walking is for everyone. And the exercises in this book, they also talk about lying down, sitting, standing, transitioning, breathing. This is sort of like a basic level care manual for the human body. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I hope you find it valuable and it lights you up the way it did me. So without further ado, Michael Gelb, welcome back to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Great to be with you.
So today we're talking about your new book with Bruce Fertman, Walking Well. And I always forget when I get one. I don't know how many books of yours I have read. It's probably in the double digits. And every single one, it runs this huge gamut from sort of intensely practical to deeply spiritual and philosophical. And I'm never prepared for that kind of stretch. Like, I'm just getting my hands around like the mechanics of walking that you describe in the first couple of chapters. And then we're with mystics and non-dual teachers of philosophy, and it all comes together. So first, I just read the book today, so I haven't been practicing the stuff, although some of it I have for years through knowing you. But I just wanted to start by saying, like, it's such a wide gamut. When you set out to write this book, when you and Bruce first started thinking about it, how closely did this final product resemble your initial impulses?
Well, it's a real expression at the highest, fullest level of what those initial impulses were, which is why we decided to write the book, because we had a mutual epiphany that walking is the quintessential human activity, and it's a metaphor for everything. How do we walk through life? So we both realized that there was a chance to make a real contribution to many people, starting with the practical methodology for making every step easier. So the whole book is grounded in that practical methodology, and it really works. You practice what we teach you and you will discover, oh my God, that's really cool. I'm walking with more comfort. I'm enjoying every step more. So it's grounded. As you noted, the first part of the book grounds you in a simple biomechanical natural approach to walking. And that then sets the stage for all of the more subtle or seemingly metaphysical benefits that accrue once you're grounded and making every step that much more enjoyable.
Right. Although those of us who know your work know that even the grounded first part, there's already a ton of philosophy in there.
Well, but it's natural philosophy. It's not heady philosophy. It's like one of the philosophical grounded insights that I got and that many of our students and readers are getting, because many of the people that we serve in our student base and our readership are similar to the people who follow you and this podcast. They're people who have already believe in the sanctity of Mother Earth and feel a connection to the earth and want to make a difference in terms of preserving and optimizing our use of resources. And there's something about feeling more connected to the ground with every step, which is what happens by the time you get through really even chapter 1, certainly chapter 2. People say, oh my God, I actually feel the whole earth supporting me with every step I take. I don't stand on my own 2 feet. Remember, you were told to stand on your own 2 feet. Good advice in terms of, be financially independent. Don't count on anybody else to look after you in this world. But you can't stand on your own 2 feet. Your feet are part of your body. They're part of you. Your feet are on the earth. You stand on the earth. Always, only, ever. So allowing yourself to feel supported by the earth is a paradigm shift ecologically in what your experience of, your felt experience of being in the world. And that then takes the philosophy of Gaia and the interconnectedness of living systems and ecology and makes it a kinesthetic, felt experience that's more available to everyone in every step. And that's a philosophical shift, but not intellectually. It's coming from experience.
Yeah, and the first philosophical shift that I found is like I've read other books on the biomechanics of walking. I've studied pose. I've done chi running, which in many ways is very similar. But what you're asking us to do, what you asked me to do in that first chapter was not to like put things together in a new, like think about it. Like you didn't ask me to do anything. You asked me to allow and to use my mind imaginatively. And I could feel as I was doing, the third thing is to, say peel as you notice your back heel coming up and noticing where the drive comes from for walking. And it was a completely different experience. And, if you had figured out like the Army manual, how to teach me to do that biomechanically, first, lift the knee using the gastrocnemius, and I never would have gotten it.
No, right.
But this sort of simple imagery, gets to this idea of that there's a natural that we are still in touch with if we know how to get back to it.
That's it. It's not about imposing something else. It's about becoming aware of what you're doing that isn't necessary and leaving it out. And when you leave out the unnecessary, as F.M. Alexander said, when you stop doing the wrong thing, the right thing does itself.
Yeah. So let's do a brief advertisement for why people should care about walking.
Well, the advertisements are everywhere in terms of all the health articles in, you name it, Prevention Magazine, New York Times. It's pretty much everywhere. Walking is the absolute best thing you can do for yourself. I mean, obviously having good relationships and eat a healthy diet. But when it comes to movement, and movement is life, pretty much everybody walks. In the US, 118 million people say it's their number one form of exercise. So if you want to regulate your weight, if you want to have your arteries be flexible, if you want to live longer, if you want kidney health, if you want a strong immune system, if you want neuroplasticity, if you want to improve your mind as you get older, if you want a healthy gut, there's masses of research showing that walking is one of the absolute best things you can do to facilitate all of those benefits. And by the way, that's an acronym that you probably noticed in the book, walking, weight regulation, arterial flexibility, and so on. So, because we try to make it easy for people to remember the benefits. And if people go to the back of the book and you look up the research, there, we have the chapter and verse of everything that we refer to, because the research here is overwhelming. So we didn't spend even too much time trying to make this point, because it seems to be pretty well established. And there's plenty of other books that will tell you about how good it is for you. And the good news is it's good for you even if you don't walk well. It's better than sitting at home. So I wrote my part of the book sitting here. I have a big picture window. I live in a community where everybody walks, and there's walking clubs and so on and so forth. And I would look out the window while I was writing this, and what I see is a lot of people are plodding, they're schlepping, they are trying too hard to get in their 10,000 steps. They're walking boldly forward with way too much effort. Now, probably a net positive for them anyway, but what if they walked with greater ease and naturalness and poise, so that every step was enhancing their overall alignment and balance and pleasure. So I was, and by the way, I should add that my perspective on this is not from some elevated, oh, well, I don't have any of these issues. No, let's just be clear. I've had a total hip replacement, a total knee replacement, and a total shoulder replacement. So I am so grateful that I know what's in this book and that I practice it every day, because it makes every walk an opportunity for self-healing. And, as you know, I teach Qigong and Tai Chi. I practice those every day. But my walking is no longer separate from my Qigong. Every step is a Qigong practice when you walk naturally. And the secret of walking naturally is leave out the unnatural things that you were conditioned to do that you probably don't even know that you're doing.
Yeah. And one of the challenges is in this culture of numbers and achievement. So we got the 10,000 step idea, and so now it's like going to the gym, and so I need to have something in my ears to distract me, so that my body can do its walk while I can do important things. If I could if I could just keep my head here and send my body out to walk, I could get twice as much done.
Well, this is the thing. That's one way of living. And it's, for people who do that, I always say, how's that working for you? Because usually it's not correlated with a sense of fulfillment or peace or joy. It's a vast emptiness, and not the good form of emptiness, but you'll never get there and you'll never have it. Because once you get there and you have it, there always moves and it always changes.
Mm. Yeah. So I mean, what you're asking me to do, it's almost like you're taking away my toys, right? So now all of a sudden walking has become something that it feels like on this side of it, that now I've got to be thinking and meditating and remembering and repeating these words.
Well, why would you do that? Look, here's the deal. You know me well enough at this point, I think, to know that I don't really like to do anything that doesn't feel really good. So, I do Tai Chi every day because it feels great. I do Qigong every day because it feels great. I like to walk more than I ever did, because what I've learned about walking through the process of writing this book makes every step literally feel better. And I'm not, this is not an exaggeration or some slogan. Literally, so let me just back you up and tell you about how this all got started. Yeah. So my co-author, Bruce Fertman, is a kinesthetic genius. The guy got a full scholarship to Penn State in gymnastics, when Penn State was the leading gymnastics program in the country. But what he found is not only was he a very gifted gymnast, but he had a gift for helping the other gymnasts choreograph their routines. He was sort of like the coach on the team. Then he became a professional modern dancer. And then he trained as an Alexander Technique teacher, which is how I met him more than 40 years ago. And he and I would connect on various conferences around the world. And we reconnected when we were both in New Mexico. He moved there many years ago. I moved there a little while after that. So I guess it was my first post-pandemic trip back to New Mexico, not that long ago. I think it was January of 2023. And Bruce heard that I was coming, and he reached out to me and said, I have some insights on walking that I think are really profound, and I'd like to show them to you. And I'm sure he was thinking maybe I could help him write something about it or get something published. And he sent me a little bit of what he'd written, but I said, well, let me just see what you got. So even though I have tremendous respect for him, he's also an Aikido guy, a Tai Chi guy, a tango guy. He's done every movement thing at a very high level. But, he's also somebody I've known for a really long time, and I'm kind of skeptical because I thought, I'm an Aikido guy and a Tai Chi guy and an Alexander Technique teacher, and I've been working with my clients, taking them out for walks for years because I always knew that it was a great catalyst for creative thinking and problem solving. So, I kind of thought I knew about walking and natural walking and chi walking and everything. Anyway, I said, okay, show me what you got. So about 40 minutes into this lesson, I said to him also, treat me like a total beginner. I know nothing, because that's what a reader or a student's going to be. They know nothing. So treat me that way. So about 40 minutes in, when I was experiencing every step being easier and more connected than I've ever experienced in my life, I had this epiphany. I said, oh my God, walking is the metaphor. It's the way in to touch millions and millions of lives and to communicate all of the wisdom of the Alexander Technique, all of the wisdom that's in Tai Chi and Qigong, all of the what we talked about already in terms of connectedness with the earth and natural ecology.
Yeah. And you also shoehorned in a lot of your Leonardo work.
Well, that was so. Then I just thought, well, it didn't take any shoehorning. It was because I had recalled from all of my writing about Leonardo and study of him that walking was his favorite exercise, and he generated a lot of his ideas while walking in the Tuscan countryside or in Milan. So I just went back and looked at all his notebooks to see references to walking. And I found things that they're almost too good to be true, like, guess who invented the pedometer? Leonardo da Vinci. And then I also knew about the role of walking in the history of genius, but as I dove into it more, it was even better than I thought. There's a line in Walking Well where I say, a book about great geniuses who didn't like to walk would be a much smaller one.
Yeah, and like that's the part that was really hitting home for me. Like I totally am there. Like, yeah, walking's great. It's cardiovascular. It's muscular. It gets you out into nature. But the cognitive and the psychological benefits, right? And as I started thinking about it's almost like, okay, you have to write a book to tell us who we are, because we're in environments in which we've completely forgotten, right? So, there's all this sedentarism,
Sure.
people, and that feels normal, but we know that normal isn't normal for human beings. And this idea, like how could we even be ourselves unless we're spending a lot of time outside walking, contralaterally, things streaming past our eyes. It's almost like that's the baseline of our natural environment.
Beautifully stated. And, I guess it's 100, let's say 130, 140 years ago, up until about 140 years ago, Most people in all of human history got where they were going by walking. So we used to all rely on walking pretty much all the time to get anywhere and do anything. And it puts us in touch with our natural state of being. And ancient wisdom, salvator ambulando, means solve it while walking. And there's now we know with contemporary science why that may be. Because we all know, the kinesthetic sense, the sense of weight, position, and movement, the proprioceptive sense, the sense that it's our body that's actually moving and knowing where parts of your body actually are without looking at them, right? So kinesthetic, proprioceptive. And we learned from Howard Gardner that those were intelligences of their own. Just like there's verbal intelligence, there's mathematical intelligence, there's kinesthetic, proprioceptive intelligence. But when you really awaken your kinesthetic proprioceptive intelligence, you also access your interoceptive intelligence. And that's what, again, everyone knows is, oh yeah, my gut feeling. Oh, I knew it in my heart. Oh, I could feel it in my bones. My blood whispered to me. So it turns out that this interoceptive sense, our gut sense of things, is real. And what's the best way to access it? Go for a walk in nature. Let your feet come down any way they want. Unbrace your ankles and your feet with every step and peel along.
Yeah, and I think, I can't remember if it was a book you wrote with Tony Buzan or if it was one of his that I've followed, but he, in one of those books, I think it might have been about mind mapping, this idea that your intuition is a gut process that basically it's all the connections that your brain can't make with its limited bandwidth, that walking can kind of unlock this genius. And I love how you constantly going back to etymologies. It's like one of my favorite things about it. And that you don't believe the BS. Like, you're like, well, this is how, I love that, like, Santerre was like Santera. And you're like, no, that wasn't really true. It's this other English. Like, I love the integrity of just going back. But this idea that the intuition, the genius, is not a few incredible people, but it's a resource that we all have. And, walking is a way to unlock it.
Well, what's her name? Elizabeth Gilbert likes to talk about what she calls the idea sphere, that there are all these ideas floating around. And there's a lot of credibility in that. If you think about something like calculus, which is a massive leap forward. And, it's not an easy thing to do, let alone to invent. And yet two people effectively invented it at about the same time. Right? You have Newton and Leibniz, each invent calculus pretty much at the same time. So clearly that it was an idea that was floating around and ready to happen. And same thing with natural selection and the theory of evolution. Darwin had to finally speed up and say, okay, I got to write this book because there are a few other people about to write the same book. So these ideas are floating around. And if you think about, we're all these antennas. But the problem is your antenna has a lot of static. Most people are not cultivating the integrity of that antenna. They're not even listening. They're not even tuning into the broadcast. They don't even know that there is a broadcast. But people who meditate and do Tai Chi and Qigong or yoga or Aikido or walk in nature discover, part of the beauty of those disciplines is they cleanse away the static, and then you become more receptive. And when you get a download, as Elizabeth Gilbert likes to point out, you have to follow it. So people ask me, like, what am I working on? What book am I writing? How do I decide what to write? I don't decide what to write. I get out of the way and I wait for cosmic inspiration. And this was, there was no question this had to happen. It was just, I was just given instructions by the universe, work with Bruce, write this book, and then go on great podcasts and talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about all the times I said no to that clear a message, right? And the times that I said yes. And it's a useful question to ask myself.
Well, and what's funny is, Elizabeth Gilbert, we were speaking together at a Sounds True conference about 10 years ago, I guess. And she told this great story. She'd gotten this great aha to write Eat, Pray, Love, and she wrote it and became really famous, and they made a movie out of it. So then she got another download that said, here's the thing for you to do. And it was a very clear, vivid idea. And she knew it was that level of depth, but she was too busy, traveling around, doing book signings and whatever. She said, I'll get around to it. And then about 6 months later, she was in a bookstore and she saw that basically someone else had written that book because it was floating around in the idea sphere. And this other person, well, okay, I'll do it. Now this person's famous too. So if you don't do it, somebody else might.
Well, that takes the pressure off at least.
On the other hand, your way of doing it, this is part of the fun, is that I don't think there's any really new ideas. And this is from somebody who teaches creativity. I think there is universal wisdom. I think the ancient Greeks, the Vedic scholars, the Taoists, the Buddha, the Kabbalists, the Sufis. I think people figured out what needs to be figured out. There's universal wisdom. Then there's making that universal wisdom fresh for yourself and for others. And then there's your unique voice in doing that. And that's the thing that's new and original, is the way you do it, the way you express it. And that's where there is no one else will do it the way you do it. It might be the same notion, but you will, and then you sit there thinking, oh man, I could have done that better. But what stops a lot of people who want to be authors is, you go on Amazon or you go to the bookstore and you're overwhelmed and you see, 50 books written on the subject you've already wanted to write on, and you think, oh, well, poor little me. No, you just do it anyway. Tune in. It's not you. You're taking notes from the universe. So just clear the antenna, sit down, let the broadcast come right through to your pen or your typing fingers, generate your ideas, don't critique them prematurely, then see what you've got.
Yeah. It's funny because you're talking about something that I have always, or not always, but come to understand sort of spiritually or metaphorically. But I'm now like getting these, like people are sending me things around this like stuff scientifically. And it feels dangerous to me because I'm like, the guy who writes books on nutrition, and I always want to see the peer-reviewed, double-blinded, controlled study. And then I'm seeing things that are starting to put me into a new age or wacky or pseudoscience category. And yet when I follow them, it doesn't feel wacky or new age or pseudoscience at all. So like what you're describing around the idea sphere is like Rupert Sheldrake.
Yeah.
Right. Who, to me, I can't find anything wrong with what he's doing, except that the materialists don't like it.
Well, that's their problem. So yeah, I'm not a materialist. I think there's no proof whatsoever that matter exists. There's just no proof. I mean, Einstein, Niels Bohr, the greatest physicists who ever lived will tell you that there's nothing there. There is nothing there. I was friends with Murray Gell-Mann, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1969. He's the guy who discovered quarks. And he's such a genius, he did it all in his head. That's his theoretical physics. He just figured out all these equations, like what's the smallest, what's everything made of? And he came up with quarks. It's a reference from James Joyce because he's a very literary guy. When he used to drive over to my house for dinner, drink wine, and tell stories and have fun, his license plate said quarks. Okay, so Murray discovered that we used to think that protons and neutrons and electrons were the smallest particles. Well, guess what? They weren't. They're made up of these even smaller particles called quarks, which have this property called charm. Because you have to get back to poetry, because when you get down to the essence, there's really nothing there. Now, and everything we know, we also know that everything we know or think we know is affected by the perceiver. And that no one's proven that anything exists without a perceiver, because it's kind of impossible to do.
Yeah.
Because once you measure something, that's a form of a perception. And we do know that measurement changes what it is we're attempting to measure. So there is this just delusion of somehow an objective world outside of our subjective experience. And having said that, I mean, obviously, look, when you stub your toe, it hurts. And that sure feels like a material world. And there seem to be clear operating assumptions that work in navigating the plane of existence that we're on in ways that better than some other ways. And really, this is kind of philosophical. It doesn't really matter. What matters to me is, do you feel better when you walk? You read the first, just forget all this stuff. You don't have to read just read the first 3 chapters. You'll walk better. Read the 4th chapter. You'll sit, stand, and lie down better. After the 5th chapter, you'll breathe better. After the 6th chapter, you'll learn about how to apply the wisdom of the animals to your walking, which takes the whole thing to a whole other level. And humanity's been doing that since every culture began in every part of the world. And then we haven't even gotten to the philosophical part of the book, which is the last section, which is just whipped cream and a cherry on top of.
Yeah. Yeah, everything leads into everything else. So when I was reading the parts about the animals, so there's like the bear, be the bear with the big bare feet and like most women I know are horrified at how big their feet are. They wish they were smaller. And you're asking people to imagine feet 14 inches wide, plantigrade, big hulking paws, 10 feet. And you then have to talk later about what would it be like to live in a world in which we saw the inner rather than fixating on the outer, the cosmetic approach to life.
That's right. Well, we call it the cosmetic body. And in the world today, media is designed to hypnotize you into believing that whatever your current state of your incarnation is, it's definitely not good enough. And if you don't buy these products and do these treatments, no one will love you, and you'll be miserable. And so it's a total sucker's game. I remember actually it was years ago, I was speaking at a conference in Texas, and one of the other speakers was this stunningly beautiful blonde woman. This is a long time ago. This is like probably 30 years ago. And she was talking about the way the media hypnotizes both men and women, but especially women. And she said, I bought into this, and it was easy for me to do it because I was a beauty queen and I got all this praise for just how I looked. She said, but I knew that there was something missing because no one was seeing who I was as a person. And I felt this pressure to always try to be this image that everybody else wanted me to be. And I'll never, she was showing us slides of the covers of women's magazines, one after the other after the other. And every single one of those covers had, first of all, a picture of some impossibly perfect, airbrushed starlet who you would never look like no matter what you did. Then there was some basic flaw about your body that this issue was going to help you fix. You know, your rear end, your breast, your belly, your face, your hair, something's wrong with you. Right? Then there's an article underneath that about how to get him to love you. Because the idea is, if you don't look like this, and if you don't fix this flaw, you will never be loved. Now, what they could do in any one of these magazines is they could just say, go for a walk, eat a healthy, fresh diet, give and receive lots of love. You know, they could cover pretty much everything you need to know to be healthy and happy in one issue, but then they can't sell any more magazines. So now with social media, the constant hypnosis is, you're not good enough, buy this, it's the only thing that will fix you. Then you have to buy the platinum level of it. Then there's only this, and da-da-da-da. And so instead I say, go for a walk. And there's something about, you know, going, you know, when you're just out there walking, doesn't matter. You don't need a fancy walking outfit. You don't need fancy walking shoes. It's an intrinsically valuable experience. It's not a performance experience.
Yeah, and the things you're talking about they're so basic. It's so easy to overlook, right? Walking, sitting, lying down, getting up, transitioning from one to the other, breathing. You could go your whole life just completely taking that for granted. And what you're showing, you know, with statistics and stories and studies is that, like, this is all you need. You can do the meditation, you can do the Tai Chi, you can do the Wim Hof, you could do all the fancy stuff.
Right.
And it's fine, and it could be fun, and it could give you some sort of marginal advantage. The way that, you know, if you wanted to become rich, you could study Warren Buffett. But Warren Buffett is not much use unless you're doing the basics, like saving more than you spend every month.
Right.
And what you're just saying, like, this is the stuff it seems boring, but it's actually, first of all, it's actually incredibly valuable. And second of all, it's not boring at all. It's the portal to everything that we could be.
Beautifully stated. And it's a way of making everyday life much more beautiful and enjoyable. Because, wow, let's explore sitting. And how about standing? You know, like, instead of, I'm waiting around, standing in line. No, I'm applying the principles of stand ease in the book about how you just align with your natural structure so that the earth supports you with minimal effort, and how to transition from sitting to standing, and from standing to walking, and from walking to standing again, and then sitting down, and then lying down. That's pretty much all we do. So what if we could make that more enlivening and fulfilling? And we can't. That's
right. Yeah. So I'd love to get into a little bit of the first bit, just to give people something to take away and already start to blow their minds. And, you know, I know you have one of the chapter epigraphs by F.M. Alexander, which is how I discovered you in the first place a long time ago, late 80s. He says, like, everyone, you know, how do we know that our idea of right is right? And so a lot of what you're inviting us to do in those early chapters is simply, you're not telling us anything. You're asking us to notice for ourselves, when we slow it down and pay attention, what are we actually doing when we're walking, and how much of that is necessary, is useful, is a minimal use of tension, and how much is sort of habitual, accretion added on that's actually getting in the way. So how would you help someone just never read the book, have never thought about this before, kind of like I hadn't?
Well, the first thing we do, because we've taught a bunch of seminars on this, both online and live, and the first thing we do is just get people to explore their preconceived ideas about walking. And we challenge some of those ideas. So many of those ideas are gender related. So most men grew up with the idea of walk like a man. I mean, it's a big song. Depending upon what generation you're from, my generation, it was John Wayne and then Clint Eastwood were the kind of role models for how you walk into a room. And for women, huge onslaught of conditioning about how you walk like a lady, walk like a runway model. So,
and the footwear that goes along with that.
Oh my God!
Both for men and for women.
Yeah, it's not conducive to your natural gait. So first thing is just to examine preconceived ideas you have about it, or maybe you have this idea that you're supposed to strike the earth with your heel and then have your toes point straight ahead. So you try to do that, or whatever other idea you have about stride forward. People think that you stride forward so that you're stepping forward and that you're moving forward, and that's where the energy is going when they're walking. It's all their mind and everything is forward. So the first thing we do is just get people to question what preconceived ideas they might have, and then we ask everybody to just go for a walk, letting go of those preconceptions to the best of their ability in that moment. And the way we say is just, what if you took a walk and let your feet come down any way they wanted to? What if your feet know better than you do about how they want to come down? And we have people go and walk, experimenting with that. And they usually come back and they say, whoa, it was it felt a little floppy and a little awkward, but it was kind of more relaxing. They're sort of intrigued at, I never thought of letting my feet do what they wanted to do.
So is this how Bruce started introducing this to you?
Exactly what he did to me. With me.
What happened with you?
Exactly. I mean, I said, yeah, it's a little floppy, a little awkward. But it's making me aware that I may be imposing something on my walk that I wasn't aware of. And then so the genius of what Bruce did. None of these steps are new. The genius of what he did is to put them in the sequence I'm giving you now.
Okay.
And if you just read it or think you know it, you won't get it. You must do, in our experience, if you want to get the benefits of what we teach, do it in this sequence. So first thing is, let my feet come down any way they want, see what that's like. Just in a really exploratory consciousness. And then it's great to debrief that. When we teach in a group, we have people debrief it and share. Then they're ready for the next step. And the next step is the one that I think to me was the most utterly transformational. And the next step is to notice if in any way you are tending to brace your ankle and your foot just before impact when you step. Now, I was really surprised to discover that that's exactly what I was doing. And Bruce also discovered that that's what he was doing. And that's how he changed his walking, and that's why he's qualified to help other people change their walking. And I changed mine because I became aware of, oh my God, I'm an Alexander teacher. I wrote all these books about this. I teach Tai Chi. I'm bracing my ankle with every freaking step. What will happen if I unbrace?
Mm.
And the thing is, you're familiar from the Alexander technique about what happens if you unbrace your head and your neck. What if you're not holding on here with everything you do? It changes everything. Turns out that the ankle functions a lot like the atlanto-occipital joint. Just like if this is locked down, everything else is going to be rigid. If you lock down your ankles, first of all, you take more impact from every step, so it's not going to serve you as much, and it's clearly not natural or efficient. But it's the same thing as when we do this, it's part of the fear response. We brace our ankles for impact because we're afraid. We don't trust our feet. We don't trust the earth. We don't trust our bodies. We don't trust ourselves. So the next thing is go for a walk and explore what happens if I just completely unbrace my ankles with every step. Mm-hmm. And so we have people go out and do that and then talk about it. And now they're getting really excited because like, oh my God, I had no idea I was doing that. And it feels so much better to stop doing that.
And that's so deep because the work I do is largely around neuroception. This idea that our nervous system is constantly scanning for signs of safety or danger. And if my ankles are bracing even microscopically every time I hit the ground, that's sending a little bit of juice to the nervous system saying, you're afraid. There's something to be afraid of here. Right? Like that is to me, it's like incredible. Like there's a baseline level of cortisol that's just constantly running through my body mind because my ankles are sending this lockdown message.
That's exactly correct. And that's why this is so life-changing, even though it just seems like a little shift. It's shifting from a fear-oriented way of taking every step to a love-oriented way of taking every step. Uh-huh. Starting with love for your own being, love for the earth, a sense of connectedness. And then that leads to the third step, which is to explore letting your foot peel along the ground with every step. And you can't peel if you're bracing. So you see the logic of the sequence. Once you're unbracing, then you can really peel. And one of the great things I discovered in the research for this book is bears and humans are plantigrades. Your dog and your cat are digitigrades. In other words, they effectively walk on their toes. Bears and humans walk on the whole sole of our foot. So if you ever peeled a banana, the way the banana peels off the banana, that's how your foot wants to peel along the ground with every step, so that you have more contact with the earth with every step. It's a little more luxurious. And in the beginning, it's going to make your walking slower. Later on, it'll make it much faster because it becomes so much more efficient. So we have people just explore, first just peel just with your right foot. You just say peel, peel every time. Then do peel, peel with your left foot. Notice how you feel. Then do peel, peel, peel with every step. And now you're flowing along and you're ready to have the next big aha, which is that the power in walking comes only from behind you and underneath you, not at all in front of you. Going forward is the result of accessing the power of the earth that comes from your back foot peeling off the ground. And then you transfer the weight to the other foot, and the foot that just finished peeling is slightly off the ground until it alights forward, but by that time your weight has shifted so it's underneath you. Mm-hmm. So your feet are actually never in front of you if you're walking naturally.
Yeah. So the way I've always heard that described was that you're constantly falling and catching yourself.
We don't like. No, you're not falling. No.
right?
That's not true.
Like there's a way in which there's some truth in that, but when you talk about metaphor, like,
Yeah.
of course I would brace if that's how I
Yeah.
thought. Well,
I would too if that's the way I thought about it. But no, you're not. What you are doing, and this is really important, and this is just a take-home tip for everybody of every age, what you are doing in every step. 40% of walking, you're balanced on just one leg. So one of the things you want to practice every day is balancing on just one leg. And you want to work up to a minute on each side and just do that every day. Because what we know is people's gait tends to get less steady as they get older. And that's a function of their inability to balance on one leg, which is so essential to walking well. So you're not falling and catching yourself. What you're doing is you're balancing on one leg, and then your foot alights on the ground, the weight transfers, and now you're peeling off and you're getting the flow of the peel of your free, easy connection with the earth, because now you're not interfering with it. And you're feeling that power coming from behind you, and it sort of ripples up through your whole body, so that it's like you're getting a massage through your whole body with every step that you're taking. So then I looked up the word origin of the word walk, to walk. And it comes from the Welsh and Middle English, from this word realcan. And again, it's almost too good to be true, except it's true. What it means is to roll along.
like a wheel, same word as wheel.
Like a wheel. That's right. And that's the feeling. It takes, now, that doesn't come right away. You've got to really get the elements independently established, and that takes some practice, and it will slow you down at first, and you will bring more attention to the walks that you take. But the good news is you don't have to diagnose and work on your walking for hours every day. We say 12 minutes a day is enough because again, it's easier to establish a habit if it's something that feels good. If I tell you you have to take an ice bath every day. Now, the people who do that, eventually they do it because they feel really good from doing it.
Yeah.
But the process of getting used to taking ice baths every day and getting to the point where the pleasure of it outweighs the pain, that's not for everybody. This is for everybody. What you have to invest to get the benefit from this is pretty much pleasurable right from the beginning. And it makes, it's not just going for a walk outside either. It's just like, when we're done, I'm going to go walk into the kitchen and make myself lunch. I'm looking forward to that walk. And just every step you take feels better.
So I'm reminded when a few years ago I was working with a partner on a book, Josh Lejani, who his big thing was bipedalism. Like, he discovered that he was a human being, and that walking and then running, and what he gave me was like, we got together to start working on a book, and I'm a very sort of neurotic Northeastern Jewish guy, and he was, he's watching me, like, we go to the Whole Foods, and I'm trying to park as close as I can to the thing, and then we get a whole bunch of stuff we're going to cook. And I have the shopping cart, and I pop it up with the two wheels on the curb because I'm a good person, so it's not going to roll and hit somebody else's car. And he goes, "Why don't you just bring it back?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I could. We got to hurry though." And he's like, and he had been extremely overweight, and now he was, walking and fit. And he's like, "No, man, it's like a prayer of gratitude to walk the cart back and to say, like, I can do this, I can walk, and I have the time." And since that moment, I have been doing it. Costco, the far reaches, I'm just walking the shopping cart back. And those were like the best walks of my life.
Beautifully stated again. And that's the real transformation here. We talk about the difference people usually make in their minds between transportational walking, like walking to the subway or the bus or to your car, and transformational walking, like a meditative walk or a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela or wherever you're going. But what part of the beauty of this approach is it dissolves that distinction. Every walk can be a transformational walk.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I'm realizing, so I live here in a suburb of Barcelona, down by the beach, and we're in a apartment. It's up on a hill. So at some point there's going to be an uphill. If wherever I go, there's going to be an uphill. And to get to town is about a 25-minute walk there, maybe 30-minute walk back. And I got this cheap little folding bicycle, and I'm like using it every day because it's a little bit more convenient. But in truth, it saves me about 20 minutes a day. And like I've got my watch here that counts my steps. And it's like if I get my 10,000, I'm good. And I'm running and I'm doing workouts and I'm going up and down the stairs. But the bicycle has really taken like walking out of the picture, unless my wife and I decide, well, let's go together. She prefers walking to the bicycle. Like that's when I'll walk. And I have to like slow down because I walk faster than she does. And I have to remember to, because she'll try to keep up and then it'll not feel good for her. But like you're reminding me like the act of spending an hour a day walking is not really a sacrifice. I'm not giving anything up.
Well, there's time, there's a time and place for different activities. Sometimes there's more urgencies, and I like to walk to town. I'm not going to do it now because it's 6 degrees here today. So I'm going to drive.
Right.
But here's what I've gotten so into this. I have an appointment at 5 o'clock today in town. And the place I'm going for this appointment has a long hallway. And obviously the whole place is heated. So I will arrive early for my appointment and I can get in my real walk, just walking up and down this hallway. Because even though I have an exercise bicycle at home and I work out one way or the other every day, I'll do my Tai Chi, I'll do my Qigong, I really, really love walking. I mean, so again, I'm not doing it to discipline myself to walk. I'm doing it because it feels so good. It feels good. You notice this theme. You know me. I like to do things that feel good. Mm-hmm. But things that will also, when I do them, I'll feel good, but I'll feel good the next day and the next day as a result of doing it. I don't do things that feel good now, but don't feel good tomorrow.
Well, I've eaten at your house. That's your philosophy of food and cooking as well.
Yeah, well, come back soon.
Well, 6 degrees is not much of an advertisement, Michael.
Fair enough. Well,
I'll wait a little bit.
Springtime.
Yeah. And you also have a website, a website for the book.
Yes.
So let's close out by telling people where they can find it, where they can start reading and listening and watching, and to get this into their lives.
Sure. Well, the first place to go is probably michaelgelb.com, Gelb, michaelgelb.com, because that has everything and links to everything, including right on the homepage to order Walking Well, and also all my Da Vinci material, and they're all, as you know, related. If people can't wait and they want to go straight to Bruce and I giving you guidance on some of the practicalities of Walking Well, because one of the things we challenged ourselves to do was write this book without any illustrations. We wanted to write it so clearly that you could read it and do what we're asking you to do without any pictures. And we feel like we've succeeded, and we love our readers. So we made this website called walkingwell.com, where we give you lots of videos and illustrations to give you the idea of what we're actually talking about. But that will all make more sense to you once you read the book. So walkingwell.com, michaelgelb.com.
Awesome. All right, those will go in the show notes. I'm raring to get this out, so it'll be tomorrow for us.
Oh, great.
So
Send me all the links to share it because I would love to. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you. You're a brilliant interviewer.
well, thank you. I'm, it's not going to sound right to say this, but it's like, it's surprising how much you still have to teach me after I have been following your, like, there's a certain point you're like, okay, I know his shtick. Right? And there's always a new shtick.
The shtick keeps evolving. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
You got it. Stay tuned.
So I can't wait. So Michael Gelb, michaelgelb.com, walkingwell.com. The book is called Walking Well with Bruce Fertman. Thank you so much for jumping on this call and sharing.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, take care. And that's a wrap. You can find the show notes with links to the things we talked about at plantyourself.com/614. That's 614. Movement News had a great tournament on Sunday, Sand Beach Ultimate. It was the Liga Catalana, the Catalan League. And thankfully, the points weren't too long. So I was able to last the whole afternoon, all 4 games. And I did pretty good. Also been taking paddle lessons with Ruben. And Adam and I are working on positioning and strategy, and that's really a lot of fun. And with the addition of this conversation that I just had with Michael, I am going to be putting a lot more walking into my day. So a little bit less bike riding. So as I mentioned on the call, the thought that, like an extra half an hour could get me an hour of walking. Now, bike riding is clearly useful too. It's especially going up those hills on that little folding bike can be quite a thigh challenge, but Michael really imprinted upon me this importance of just walking every day. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that in the days and weeks to come. That's about it for me. Look forward to seeing you here again next time. As always, be well, my friends.